Hi, everybody. My name is Tiao. I'm the writer, producer, and I also play Ming in the movie. Thank you very much for coming. And I'm here basically to answer any questions you might have about the film. Unless you thought it was a perfect movie and there are no questions.
How did you originate the ideas of this film?
So the question is, how did I originate the ideas of the film? So my parents are originally from Kaohsiung, Taiwan. And one of the things they kind of taught me and my sister was to call ourselves Taiwanese, not Chinese. And that got them into trouble. They were put on a blacklist of other students from Taiwan for a long time, and they couldn't go back. And then when they did go back, they were harassed and followed. And I knew that their friends had similar things happen to them, if not much worse. And over time, I eventually went into politics and government and worked on these issues for a number of years. And then when I became a filmmaker about 7 years ago, I always had envisioned this idea in mind, but I didn't know. I knew about these things, but I didn't know the specifics. And I went and I researched this period, primarily between 1979 and 1985, that happened in Taiwan and in the United States. Yes?
How you find all the actors and actresses, from American and also in Taiwan?
It was challenging, definitely. We shot the movie in Chicago, and then in the outskirts of Bangkok, Thailand for 1980s Taiwan. And we had casting directors in Chicago, Vancouver, Los Angeles, Taipei, and Bangkok. And so we had a really, really wide net spread out to try to find actors. We cast from everywhere. I mean, we have Chicago actors, Canadian actors, Hollywood actors, Hong Kong actors, Taiwan actors, and Thai actors. So it's a really big multinational cast. Yes.
My compliment to you. This is a good film. My question is, do we plan to have a sequel? Because Taiwan's government now is just toward a different direction than you have just shown. They are now more close to mainland China and forget what the Taiwan democracy movement was in the 1980s and 90s.
Well, I'm always open to making another film. If you happen to have a $10 million check with you, I'm happy to make another one. Always with independent films, it comes down to financing. And it took me about 2.5 to 3 years to raise the financing for this film. So it's a long, difficult process to make a movie. It's a very long. It took me 5 years from conception to now, to the point that you're watching it today. So it's a long process, unless someone has the financing. So, like I said, if you have a check, very, very happy to do that. But, it all depends, a lot of it depends on how this movie does, in the box office. And so far, it's been, we've been really encouraged by the positive response, primarily, obviously, by the Taiwanese community, but also it's starting to cross over into the American community as well, which is really nice.
Have you heard reactions from the other side, the Taiwanese community that might be very wary of this kind of about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the movie's meant to provoke a discussion. Definitely,
exactly.
It's definitely the whole point of the movie is to create a venue so that people can discuss the film. So absolutely, I think if you go on the internet, there's all sorts of things written about the movie, both positive and negative, and depending on whose side you're on. So absolutely, there's been a lot of discussion, and we're glad. We're happy to see that. We're happy to see the discussion happening. I think that oftentimes in Taiwanese and Chinese cultures, that this type of stuff is people don't like to talk about it. And so the idea is that with this film, and hopefully the power of movies, is that people will actually discuss some of these issues, not just for the Taiwanese and Chinese community, because actually, I always said when we were making the film was that the movie's really aimed at a kind of American kind of general audience, because I mean, you don't have to know anything about Taiwan to watch this film. You can just come in and just, take it for what it is. And a lot of people are doing that. And a lot of Americans who are watching the film are going home and learning more about these issues, which they need to, because I always say that, You know, the U.S.-China relationship is going to be the most important relationship of the 21st century. And the only potential for military conflict between the United States and China is the issue of Taiwan.
Has it been shown in Taiwan?
It has not. No, not yet.
Is it, you have plans?
We're talking to distributors right now, but whoever we end up working with is going to have to get approval by the Government Information Office, the GIO, which is a government agency. They have to approve everything that's shown on Taiwan. Yes.
When would you like Taiwanese people to have chance to see this movie? When?
Well, really, it's not up to me. It's really up to, as I said, the Taiwanese government. The Taiwanese government has to approve any films that are shown on the island. So as I said, we're in the process right now of finding distribution in Taiwan. But frankly, we're in the process of finding distribution around the world. We have recently sold off Scandinavia, the Middle East. We have an interested offer in the United Kingdom, in England. We have interest in Australia, in Latin America, and the rest of the world. So like the rest of the world also is very interested. So Taiwan is, of course, one of the countries that we're talking to. But like I said, a lot of this is out of our hands. It's a matter of when we get a deal with the distributor, and then once again that distributor has to then take it through the approval process in Taiwan.
Do you think it's difficult to get permit to show this movie in Taiwan?
That's a question for the Taiwanese government. It's really not a question for us because we don't really know. We won't really know until the distributor applies.
Are you going to the DVD market?
Yes, eventually. I mean, we will do all the things that a movie does. Typically, we first show it in theaters, then it'll go on DVD, then it'll be sold on the internet and on television. Oh, and then before that, it'll be on video on demand, where people will be able to order it on television as well. So we will go through all the typical channels that one does. And I actually should probably make a plug for my composer. So the guy who wrote the music for this movie, Jeff Deanna, his soundtrack is available for purchase on the internet now. So you can just look up Formosa Betrayed soundtrack and you can find it. Yes?
How did you come up with the name?
So there's actually a book called Formosa Betrayed. It's written by an American diplomat named George Kerr, who witnessed the 228 massacre that we talk about in the movie. In fact, my character specifically talks about the 228 massacre. And it was actually while reading that book that I thought the title was very evocative. You know, I thought, first of all, I like Formosa over Taiwan in terms of a title, in terms of a movie title, because it's to me it's more symbolic. You know, Taiwan was a little too on the nose to me, and I honestly it was a working title for me, because for me Formosa Betrayed is not just about 228, but Formosa's been betrayed on many levels, as we talk about in the movie, and so for me actually it was actually to spark my imagination originally, and with all the writers that were involved and the directors, it was kind of to spark their imagination. I never thought this would be the eventual title of the movie, but everybody actually really liked the title, and a lot of, you know, as we started to raise money and as we started to get, you know, a lot of backing, people were like, we like this title, we'd like you to keep it. So it was kind of a consensus after a while.